everyone always wonders, what does the agent do? What does a sports agent do? It seems cool. Show me the money. In this video, we're going to talk about how to get the most out of your agent. And when that agency recruiting process comes, what should you be looking for? And make sure that you understand the relationship dynamics and that they work for you. So that's what we're going to jump into in this video. Let's get to it. So what do sports agents do? Man, that's a pretty wide-ranging question. Sometimes they're the best friend. Sometimes they're getting ready for player development. But to be completely honest, the will that they present themselves for what an agent role fills in is pretty much a 360 around the player, right? Whether it's player development, contract negotiations, finances, post-career, marketing, branding, all those things that they say they do. But we've seen from plenty of times that doesn't necessarily happen. We know that they have a roster of players, they have different departments that handle things for players, and so on and so forth. So essentially what agents are there to necessarily do is negotiate your contract, be the point of reference for the team, and make sure that you have maximized your career to an extent. And the thing that I can't say I have a problem with, but the thing that we just need to make sure that we're understanding is that they work for you. And the time that the agencies come into the game now is getting younger and younger and younger. And it's twofold. There's positives and there's obviously negatives. The positives are you can interview them longer periods of times than you could previously. Previously it was illegal to deal with agents or marketing reps and anything of that nature. So you were left with a quote unquote 2-month window to kind of interview guys, interview different people of that nature. But we know that wasn't the case. Agents get the prospects much younger. Even for myself, like my agent, I knew him when I was in 6th or 7th grade, and just the dealings of that. But that's the inner workings or the underworld of just dealing with agents in general. But they're pretty much essentially positioned themselves to be responsible for your entire career, right? Like all the way through the post career. But we see that doesn't typically happen. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit in this video. So you guys are making sure that when you pick your agent, that you have a relationship and a business relationship that is healthy for you, your family, and your career ultimately. So how to find a good sports agent? To be completely honest, understanding what you're looking for from that person. Are you looking for someone that's going to help you through the whole process and bring every detail to the table? Or are you looking for someone that's a service provider in the agency space in the sense of, I would handle my contract, right? I look over my contract, do that, because that's what we need to figure out first, is what scope of work that the agent needs to do for you. And once you understand what your capabilities are, what your team situation looks like, sometimes an agent handling all those aspects of your career isn't the best thing. And we see that sometimes where just the way that the SRA is set up in the NFL, a guy signs with an agent and it's a guaranteed contract for the agent. They necessarily don't have to work anymore to get you deals. They don't really have to work to secure that 3%, because the way that professional sports is everything's super fast. Everything's next up until, contract comes up or an agent or an injury happens and you need a second opinion and just some of those things in between. And, some agencies are starting to bring out, their own training facilities or just filling in some of the gaps, right? But a lot of times, I don't know how valuable it is, to be completely honest. Either when it comes to the slotting of the draft picks and different things of that nature and getting on the field. They're there to show you, they're there to sell you on the value that they bring to you. And a lot of times, with the way that the game is changing, the value, I think, is slipping a little bit. It's especially the younger they go, the younger prospects get. You can save up or make about $40,000 in NIL money going through the process. I don't know how much you need the agent or how much leverage the agent has when you're going through the pre-draft process, because that's probably typically what it costs around, right? Like $30,000 to $40,000 to go through that. And that's how agents have the upper hand and leverage to get you to sign an SRA, because they take you through that process. It's an easy value add, but they get that back tenfold when you get drafted. And that's something that they're working for. Agents are out here recruiting to make sure that they have their roster built up. So just make sure that you have a clear understanding of what you want from an agent, whether it's just for that person to handle just the contract negotiations, or are you looking for a full service agent? I think that's the number one thing that you want to make sure. And that's not the full service agent and the independent agent situation are completely different for personality. Some people have a whole team situated where they can just plug and play an agent and hire them hourly to do their contract. And a lot of times that saves them a great deal of money, and it puts you in the position to where your service providers are working for their money, and it's not just a matter of signing up or trying to be close to athletes, which happens a lot of times in this space, right? With runners getting around younger and younger and younger, and everyone's working for you. But at the end of the day, you got to cipher that out a little bit, just where the agents come from. So the next thing is, how do you find a good sports agent? I think the good sports agents keep it real all the way through. Like, they might tell you that, hey, I'm not good at player development, or I'm not good at finance, or I'm not good at marketing, branding. I mean, they have a job and they're there to work for the player. So there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, you have to understand where the motivations are, who they're representing, and different things of that nature. And that's kind of how you want to go about that process when you're looking for an agent. Because the good ones, I would say, are typically honest about their scope of what they can handle, and being able to understand exactly what's coming in their service when you're looking at an agent will be extremely important. So make sure that you have a detailed understanding of what you need, and that will set up what a good agent is for you. But finding a good one, make sure your criteria is tight first. Next thing, what do you need to do before signing with an agent? Vet them. Ask the players that they represent. How do they treat them? Look at the players that transition out of the game. Did they have any hands in it, helping them transition to another career? How was the player development through their professional playing days, right? Did they have any injuries that they had to get taken care of? And then what did the agent do to help that player situate, the injury problems, or whether it's a player development thing? Hey, he has a problem finding the deep ball. Like, did that agent see that was an issue for you to get better at? Because that's what's going to keep you on the team, not the agent's relationship with the personnel guy, unless it's maybe a top end quarterback or just associated with a quarterback agent. That's a different conversation for later. But really, what are they doing for you? Because a lot of times what I think guys don't understand is, like, they get these promises when you're going through the agency recruiting process. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to get you big brand deals. We're going to help you transition to Michael Strahan on TV. And then once you're in the game, 100% injury rate, it's a fine line between making the team, not making the team, being a star, not being a star, a lot of situational things. And agents are extremely aware of this. But they're looking for, like anybody in business, is hitting on that asset that makes a lot of money. So with that being said, make sure that you're set up to provide the services that you need in your career. So that's first, understanding what services you need in your career. But so before signing with an agent, make sure that I think the best thing with the NIL that's coming up is that you can get your money situated in a correct way. Like, man, whether it's through merchandise, brand deals, and different things of that nature, to where when it comes to dealing with an agent, it's more of an even ground. You're not you're not crazy broke, just looking for somebody that's, giving handouts or money to try to entice you to how valuable they are. Like, make sure agents, if at this point, man, agents should be showing their value and what kind of deals they can bring to you now. Because my whole gripe with agents even getting into the NIL game is, why aren't you handling your NFL clients? Like, how come only 3% of NFL players have marketing and brand deals that are outside of apparel, right? Like, why is that so low? And why can you do so much for a high school kid that we know has but so much value, or but so much value in college? And it's just, from that standpoint, it's hard to understand why you would try to build in that way. So when that happens, it's hard to understand who's on your team, who's not on your team. And that's what we want to definitely recognize. Just when dealing with the agents, they work for you. You don't work for them. They work for you. And so understanding what you need to be serviced in that manner is extremely important. So the next thing we'll get into is how to work with your agent, being very clear about what you need and not being afraid to ask, right? A lot of times the relationship is started from a different power dynamic, right? We had a guest on, Jonathan Wade, talking about going to Atlanta for a bowl game and being introduced to the agents. And it's essentially a grooming process, right? They meet the guys they get introduced to freshmen while recruiting the seniors and juniors. And then they're, as they're spending the money on the juniors and seniors with the lavish town cars and limos and bottle service and all those things, like the younger impressionable guys are like, oh, who's that? Going with our best player. And you start getting associated with just wanting to be in that mix. Because a lot of guys, when they get to college, are like, man, I'm trying to go to the league. And you start seeing the guys that you've played with. And then this is like the first instance where these guys that have been on your team are starting to make that transition to the NFL and like the things that come around it. And it's enticing. And that's a lot of times what agents use to give that allure of their power and their ability to connect the dots and doing all this stuff. And they might have some connects at the clubs and some discounts or some nice little hookups and things of that nature, but make sure that you're not making emotional decisions and things of that nature, because the sport of football, you are the asset and you're going to be selected by how good you are or in the things that you bring to the table. Yeah, sometimes an agent can speak and has some friends in the business that can help a little bit, but no one is putting their job on the line for your agent. So if you're not good enough, the agent can't really do much of anything. And when it comes to negotiating contracts and things of that nature, negotiating is negotiating. I don't think you can pick an agent based on how well they negotiate, because that's just such a small part of the time that you're spending with them, or whether if they've signed a whole bunch of different clients. Like, you don't know the different details of the contracts when they try to promote, oh, we signed $250 million worth. None of that. Make sure you're connected with the agent. Make sure that they can provide the value that you need to make sure that your career is maximized and transitioning out, that you have a personal and business relationship with this person, because it's extremely important. But that's also starting from the beginning, is like, are you going for a full service agency, or you just want somebody to kind of handle the agent requirements, whether it's contract negotiations, point of contact for the team, and kind of bring your own team of service providers around and approach it that route, right? So those are two different ways. And I would say that Lamar Jackson is an example of someone that's kind of going, his mom's doing the agent thing and he's putting a team around him, right? With the mom being the point person of the agent. But that can be done plenty of different ways. We're going to see more players going that route with NIL, because they have the money. They'll have the money to, whether it's pay for pre-draft training, get financing, to pay their own way to go through that pre-draft process, and kind of cut out the agent from the standpoint of that's where they have the leverage at the beginning to get you to sign that SRA, to get you to be tied in for X percent, 3% or whatever it is, and being left to a coin toss if they're going to do the work for the next 3 to 4 years, or however long that you're in the NFL. But we all know that it's a 2 whatever year average. So, if you just kind of last long enough, it's on to getting recruiting. So that's kind of what I get to, is just looking at the agency game. It's presented like it's just this full service providing thing, but the real operation of the agent and what they do, from just my comprehensive view of the ecosystem, is like they're recruiters. Like, they're out looking to recruit. Like, some of them are good, right? That continue with the player development, the connecting the dots and things of that nature. So you do your own research for that matter, but they have to get more players the next year. So just always understand what box they fit in and where they're going through and why they trying to recruit you. So yeah, the last thing is pitfalls to avoid when working with an agent. Again, the pitfall is the fact that you want to listen to this person, but you want to be informed as possible as you're going through, and have sounding boards outside of the agent that can give real advice. Because the one thing you don't want to happen is just being beholden to an agent to tell you everything to do, and you're just kind of left to whatever he says, and it's your career. So there's an onus in understanding what you need to bring to the table and what the agents needs to bring to the table. So just gonna leave it at that today. So you guys check out Blue Chip Academy, the podcast. If any players going through the process, man, we have some great professional services, whether it's the hit the ground running program, so you can get into the NFL and doing those different things that first year is mapped out, blueprint to success. And and that's what we got here at LIG Sports Group and Blue Chip Academy. But just remember, when you're picking out your agent, man, they work for you. Understand what sports agents are actually there for, how to find a good sports agent, right? Is making sure that your criteria is picked out and what kind of services that you need from this person, and not just handing over to like a big agency or someone that represents a lot of players. Make sure that person lines up with your career goals and what you want out of this game, because it can get real tricky. And then now that these guys are coming in younger and younger, it's definitely important to understand where you fit. yeah, and like make sure you understand what you're doing before you sign with an agent, and understanding that once you sign that paper to SRA, if things aren't negotiated or aren't settled out perfectly, you're a little bit, you're at a disadvantage when you're going through your career. And that's just point blank period. And I'll just tell a quick story about the one time where my agent, I felt like showed the most value in my career. After my third year, I had a lot of injuries, hamstrings, groin, just soft tissue injuries, and just had to figure it out. And we really took the off season to get it together, help me put a plan together, whether it was the different blow or different trainers, and just helping put the whole plan together. And I got better. And there was like actual value there. I mean, me and my agent are really close. Shout out to Mets. But there's just different things, and you see it going through the process in other areas where agents not really doing a job. And it really opened my eyes when I worked on the other side, and you start hearing agents negotiate for some of the players that maybe aren't the top NFL guys, or maybe they're just trying to get a job. And I didn't really like the temperature that I was getting from a lot of agents that were representing players that weren't superstars. I was really turned off by it. I mean, you don't hate the player, hate the game, but the system in itself, seeing it from that standpoint, kind of put a sour taste in my mouth on just the perspectives or the motivations of different agents and when they're coming to the game and dealing with players that, whether they're a first round draft pick, undrafted free agent. So just make sure you're doing your homework, making sure that you're crafting leverage for yourself, and understand that the agents work for you and you're in charge. Make sure you remember that. You guys tune in to Blue Chip Academy, and I'm out.